of you that don't know about one of my passions, reading is one of them, and self-help is my genre. And I am very blessed with working with people that have similar interests. This book I read a couple of years ago, and it was recommended to me by Susan Manesh. And with all the material that I read, what I found to be so helpful is the simplicity of the message that you could integrate into your own life and get really great results. And by sharing that with a lot of people, it just opened up so much conversation. And what I love about it also is that, especially in these times right now, these COVID times, what I'm experiencing personally is detachment with connection. And what I mean about that is surrendering to what it is in our new environment, but remaining connected and letting go of all the things that meant so much to us in our life, and finding so much purpose in just being instead of doing. So this book was very much in alignment with my journey in these past few months. So I will be very interested to hear about everybody else's opinion on it.
So do you want people to ask you questions?
Yes, by all means.
Okay,
let's open up
back and
conversation.
forth.
It would be fantastic.
Hi. I do believe in the power of thought, and that you can alter results, as Ruth gave him all the tricks to use to move him forward in life.
So what I found very interesting about his story, I think that we all have a story, and that he was 12 years old and what he came from, and that they made this connection. I myself know the importance of connection. When I connect with somebody and your heart opens up, you could just feel that flow, and you kind of want to capture that. I live for that feeling in my life. So when he connected with Ruth and she was able to take him on that journey of 6 weeks and teaching him the tools to be able to observe his thoughts and what that actually meant. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't learn about this until I was well into my 40s. You know, my thoughts ran rampant. Yeah, I didn't understand consciousness until I had experienced tremendous suffering and pain. And I think that for a 12-year-old to have learned these tools and then learned how to implement them, and then takes us on this journey of how he used them in his life, and to know that it's a true story, is so powerful, so powerful. And yes, thoughts do become things, and that we have the power, the magic lies within us to choose, to be able to decipher between your mind and your heart, and to separate from our thinking and then choose the right thinking.
It's funny because when I started reading this book, hi Tam. When I started reading this book, it was, it's a lot of what we learn in yoga, to breathe, the exhale, the inhale, relax the hands, relax the fingers. It's all what I've been learning. It's exactly what my yoga teacher tells me every single day that we go to class. And I was talking to someone yesterday, and her therapist was telling her to do breath work to relieve her anxiety. And I said, just do it every day. Like it really does. It makes a difference. It gives you a sense of calmness. And it's very interesting what it does to your body, what it does to your mind and your body.
You know what I think is really interesting? When we're born, we are born into a society, into a family, and we're domesticated, we're socialized, we're not taught these things. Now we're seeing in the world that children are being taught about stillness, about quieting themselves, and we're so trained away from it, and we get so caught in the minutia of everyday life that to really be able to be still with yourself, and this quarantine is like that kind of a training, we have no choice but to be still and to accept where we are in our environment. And all of these tools, the getting to tap into your power and know that you have the power to calm yourself, to let the right thinking come through, to have that clarity, and then to start to train yourself to see the world through the lens with compassion and with empathy and opening your heart. To me, when you get on the side of life of giving instead of what you can get, the world opens up in ways that are just so magnificent. And that's what I call detachment with connectedness, to be connected. Because I don't know about you guys, but there isn't a pocketbook, a shoe, a car, a house, a boat, a trip, a vacation, a hotel that could make me happy other than my immediate family right now and what I've gained in these past couple of months with us being connected and doing work on ourselves together collectively right here in my home. It's just been so valuable.
I have something to say. Hi, Tammy.
Hi, how you doing?
Hello, you guys. I'm happy.
Thank you for joining us.
Love it. This book came at a great time with the quarantine. I wish it came 2 months ago, 3 months ago. I wish we read it then. It had such a value. I used so much of what he was saying, how young he was to get this information. Wish we all had this. But now what I'm thinking about is implementing it within my grandchildren, because I see how restless they are. And if we could sit with them and talk with them and maybe give them a little of that insight. What a great book. Thank you for recommending. So informative. Thank you, really.
My pleasure. I'm happy that it impacted you.
Hi, Tammy.
Hi. Hi, Alice. How you doing? So happy you're with us.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. These are such important tools. And what strikes me about, at least in this conversation, is that the tools are always there for us, for everybody. And yet it seems that we avail ourselves the most for them when either we're challenged, like right now, we're home, we have nowhere to look or nowhere to go, so we really are forced to be with ourselves. And for this, I forget his name, but for this, this young boy at the time, would he have been able to be so receptive to them if he wasn't so hungry for attention, right? He didn't have anything at home. And so I think, that's what drew him to Ruth and maybe had him be able to receive what she was giving him, especially at such a young age.
So I think that what drew him to Ruth was compassion. She saw potential in this young boy and he saw and felt kindness. And that is something that you can't doubt. When your heart feels connected to another person, that's what human connectedness is. And I think that unfortunately we've been lacking a lot of that in our society. And I think that this is a perfect example. His parents, he knew that they loved him, but there was no nurturing. He never felt safe, and here he walked into this store and one older woman, was kind. And she exemplified compassion and they connected. And then he opened up and he was ready to receive it. You could call that hungry. I think we all are our base. We just want to be loved. We're all wounded. That's just humanity. And I think that—
Hi, I have a question.
Yeah?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Florence Tabelli. My question is, I loved what he said, absolutely. But I got messed up a little bit when he couldn't love his own children. That part, he talked about heart and everything's about love. And not love, but his heart. Had he not have any kind of heart for his children that he had?
So I could speak to that.
It just bothered me.
I could speak to that. I have found in my own experience in my life that as much compassion as I think that I have, there are experiences that break me open even deeper. And I have recently experienced personally that I lacked empathy for my immediate family, for the people that I love the most. I have it for clients, I have it for strangers. And I've learned in this time that it's an intimacy disorder with myself. It's me protecting my own pain. And I can see that now in his story. I could see how he was so caught up in, you know, his success and his money and everything outside of him that he lost, or he didn't tap into the empathy and the compassion that was so needed and necessary to be in healthy relationships.
Hi, Terri Harary.
Hi.
So I think that it's not so much that he found Ruth, but that Ruth found him. He went to the store for magic. He found a different magic there. Ruth was the one who really was the compassionate, the seer and the seeker. And she saw his woundedness and knew that she could help him. He was receptive to it because he was broken and hungry and wounded. But she really was the one who turned it all around. He was open to it. He's lucky he found her and didn't find a child molester, because that same place that he was at, had he met someone who was kind to him but was not healthy, would not have been able to. He needed the attention, but she saw precisely what he needed. And she was a very compassionate, loving person who struggled with her own children.
Yes.
Back to what you said before.
Yes.
Not get through to her own, but was able to get through to this young man.
Yes. Very good point.
Tammy, was there a significance for him changing his name? You know,
in the beginning of the book, I think symbolically, in my opinion, it would be that he was looking for a new identity, but he never really elaborated on it. When she asked him his name, he just said Jim. So I think that on a subconscious level, it's just my opinion that perhaps he, in this journey was looking for a new identity and to separate himself from where he came from. He did suffer from a lot of shame. And I just think his journey is amazing. And I think that I love stories like this, especially that are true. And I love victory. I love when somebody, grows through life and then contributes and gives back and then goes on to share with the world. I think that that's how we ultimately make big differences in this world.
I also love the lesson of like envision something and it will happen, to put something out there in your mind. Like when I saw my grandson that day, I told him, this is what you have to do. He's 12 years old. And I said, what do you want to do? Envision it and it will happen. It's such an important lesson for the kids. I know Alice does her vision boards. I kept thinking of that at that point in the story.
What's interesting is that we all create by default. You're creating every single minute of your life. All of this that you're reading about, these are the principles of the universe, if you will. To have an awareness, to be, I'm sorry, wait, hold on, my dog. Hold on, I'm gonna mute it for 1 minute. I'm so sorry, somebody just walked in. But anyway, what I was saying is that ultimately we are creating by default. To be conscious of it and to create with an intention is what he is teaching us. That all of this is working whether you believe it or not. But to quiet yourself and still yourself and to calm yourself and to connect with your breathing and to quiet your thoughts and observe them, and then to have and intention about that which it is that you're wanting to create, and then allowing the process to unfold and supporting that process with your faith, with belief, with understanding, with compassion and empathy. And that is a new experience. Does that make sense? Am I making sense?
Yeah, I'd like to say something. Definitely makes sense to me. So I thought, you know, he says this, I think he says it throughout the book, this, this idea that he has these tools, that he can do anything that he wants to do. He can calm himself. He can envision, you know, the future he wants to have, getting into medical school, all of these things. But he keeps going back to the part about the heart, that he didn't get that last piece that Ruth gave him. And it's interesting because I was just having a conversation right prior to this with another coach, and we were talking about how it's one thing to know something, but you know, they say the longest road is from the head to the heart, right? So it's just, and then to think about, I mean, I don't know who could really go through what he went through in terms of giving everything up. I mean, like, we know, okay, well, the material doesn't matter, but he really let go of it all against everybody else's suggestion. And that's how he found his heart, when he just had nothing left.
But Alice, before he gave it all up, he lost it all. So when it came back, he already knew he didn't need it. He had already reframed it. It's similar to what's happening in COVID right now.
I know. And you know what? My question for this, and in terms of how we all move forward with COVID, is usually change happens when we lose something and we suddenly we see what's important. But how do we move forward and, you know, maintain something and still come from the heart? I mean, we all know what's most important right now, but when life starts picking up again, it's just going to be interesting to see how much presence and consciousness we could carry forward with us.
So look at his story. You know, he created a practice. And I think that that practice is important in every aspect of life, whether you are an athlete, whether you are a parent that wants structure in your home, whatever it is, it's all about the practice. Like you said, you could have knowledge of something, but it's the integration of the knowledge in your heart. It's not until you feel something deeply that you have the ability to heal. And it's through practice that we have the power to heal our wounds, to make that change in ourselves. We know that from looking at all types of addictions. We know that from habits, habitual anything, whether it's thinking or whatever your habits are. It's changing your practice. And towards the end of the book, when he listed his 10, what did he call it? Compassion, dignity, equanimity, forgiveness, gratitude, humility, integrity, justice, kindness, and love. He meditated about that every day until it became who he was. And that gave him the ability to let go. Because once you find that you have all of these things within you, then you can detach from a physical world. Because then all of a sudden you know that you have access to everything. It's all about the feeling. Whatever we have or we accumulate or our acquisitions, they provide us with feelings. When you tap into those feelings, when everything just melts away and you just find out that you are happy, you just don't need as much anymore. That's been my experience in my life. And then the interesting thing is when you don't need it, it just always shows up.
We have a next question. Thank you. That was gorgeous. Stephanie Franco, go.
Okay, so I have a question for everybody. So we're talking about that he gave away everything and that he is now, of course, a world-renowned helper. But my question is, he hurt the first wife, he hurt the second wife, he has 2 children that he wasn't a father to. How about the many women that he slept with? So my question is it better to be a world-renowned altruistic person or the people in his immediate circle that he hurt or that needed healing after he was involved with them. Jacqueline Kennedy said, as a mother, the most important job she felt in the whole world was being a successful mother. That to her was success. And Gandhi, who changed the world with nonviolence, which we could certainly use now, his children were also estranged from him. So is there a price you pay when you go out into the world? And as the Dalai Lama said to him, he's selfishly altruistic. What about the people in his immediate circle that he damaged and hurt?
So I'd like to speak to that. It's my impression with his work and also with the studies that I've done with Gandhi, that they recognized the pain and the injustice of their lifestyle. And that was when they experienced forgiveness, asking for forgiveness and wanting to be forgiven and to make amends for it. And I think that that's part of our growth. I think whether you are the person hurting or doing the hurting, it takes two of us, we're co-creators. It gives us an opportunity to forgive and to forgive ourselves and to ask for forgiveness. I think it's very powerful. And unfortunately, we need suffering to be able to experience that. It's when we hold the pain and we carry the pain and we continue hurting that I don't see justice in that. I'm about forgiveness. I believe in forgiveness. I believe in digging deep enough to look at, like there are the parts in the book where or maybe it was, I listened to a lot of his lectures, and when everything falls away, the physical falls away, when you don't see the mother, the father, the sister, the brother, the doctor, you just see the soul. And you're able to have empathy and compassion and understand that at the time in his life, those decisions that he made were not in alignment with who he is anymore, but that they could find forgiveness and they could reconnect in a different way. Like he says in the book, we're all on a journey of connection. I definitely believe that. I believe that anything that separates us and causes disconnection is an opportunity for us to discover what our wounds are and to work on the healing until we can get reconnected again.
I just want to say, I think the most profound thing in the book is something that you were talking about, is that to forgive the very people who hurt you the most. And of course, there was a line in there that Ruth told him. She said, oftentimes those who hurt people are those who hurt the most. And I think that's the biggest thing I think I struggled in life with. Like when I was a kid, I was bullied, or anybody who hurts you in life, that you have to see them as human beings and that they hurt. And that really, I think, changed him, especially when he was a child. Like he went up to the kid who bullied him and he refused to fight him, or when he went up to his father and he just said, he went up to his parents and said, I love you, when he saw them fighting. Like that's one of the most profound lessons in the whole book, I think.
On the front of the book, he says it was a quest to discover the mysteries of the brain and the secrets of the heart. And the one thing that stands out for me is the mind always wants to divide and separate us. The thoughts in your mind, it causes division and separation, but the heart wants to connect and to share. Mm-hmm. And that's the work between the mind and the heart. And that's ultimately, towards the end of the book, what his whole journey was all about. Why he let go of the physical world and just wanted to give back and to figure out how could we tap in to our compassion? How can we love better? How can we learn how to forgive? How can we come from that place where our real true richness is? Ultimately, our own personal magic shops.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, once I started seeing, you have to really start seeing the people who hurt you, like they said, as human beings, and that they suffer too. That's why they hurt you. because they're suffering with something in their own lives. So they take it out, unfortunately, on other people because they didn't deal with their own hurt and pain. So
what I have experienced in what you're saying is that a lot of times people will not do the work of looking beyond because of their own pain. We're so busy protecting our own pain. It hurts so much to have to plow through that and to face what our belief systems are about our pain. If we were to give it up, if we were to give up, like, I don't like him because of this, and he hurt me, or she this or she that, if we gave that up, we would find love. And then what would happen? But we're so attached to these paradigms and these fears and this pain and the shame and the anger that we don't even know how to act.
We hold on to it too much instead of
exactly. So any
and
opportunity,
then it only destroys us to do that.
Say it again.
It only destroys us when we constantly hold on to those old wounds and pain.
Right. It pollutes your life. And when you finally learn how to crack, or when something happens, I don't know what anybody else experienced in COVID, but I did a lot of shedding in this time. And I discovered things about myself that I was completely oblivious to because I was on autopilot. And I know that, unfortunately, suffering is the only thing that's going to really crack us open. But we're trained to look at suffering from a victim consciousness. And if we could look at things as opportunity, what is this trying to teach me? What is it? What are you here for? It's not happening to me. It's happening for me. And that's a choice that you make. That's exactly what he was trying to say, is like, you have the power to choose your thoughts, to choose how you want to look at it. You have the power to surround yourself with people that could help you with your thinking, support you in seeing things in a different way. That's the beauty of relationship and the beauty of connection. And we need to empower ourselves. We need to take our power and use it in the right way. Look, I don't know about you guys, but I'm sure I could find a whole group of people that would love to bash this and bash that. I'm not about, I want to be, I don't want to be done with anybody for the rest of my life. I want to be all in, and I want to find forgiveness for everybody and anybody that has ever hurt me or is hurting somebody else. I want to do that. I really mean it. I believe in love, and I believe that the two pillars in life, it's either fear or love. And I believe in everything that's on top of love. And that's how I want to live the rest of my life. And I'm not perfect, but I'm learning to be able to see other people's imperfections and see how it's mirroring back to me. What is it trying to show me, and how can I find forgiveness for that? Yeah.
Tammy, I feel like, I mean, it's, I ditto everything you're saying, and I feel that it's speaking to just what we're all doing here, is the journey of growing spiritually. So to take it back to him and his story, it wouldn't be a success story if he didn't, be in those unconscious places where he was sleeping with women and hurting people and being disconnected. And I'm not giving him a pass for that. I'm just saying that, I mean, I think it brings up two things. I think, and I love what you guys are all saying about Gandhi, and, like we know of so many really, spiritual, I don't know if they're spiritual giants, but people that were for peace, and yet in their own home, they were different people. So that to me is like the conundrum of being human. And yet I think that, we're all, it's like the hero's journey. It's like we all have to sort of go in that forest of darkness and meet our demons. And
there's no other way to break it open. You always know what you want when you know what you don't want. You know who you are when you know who you aren't.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is that not everybody wakes up that way. I mean, we're all here having a thoughtful discussion, and yet, and talking about, understanding love and forgiveness and spirituality. But yet, of course, when we're in our lives and we're watching and we get involved with people that are hurting others, it's hard to put this into practice. But I think that's what we're all here for, is to grow, is all of us, even the ones that are acting out, I think, are hopefully going to wake up or come to some sort of understanding.
It's interesting, but it's been my experiencing and observing life that if you don't get it in one way, you're going to get it in another way. And that's why you hear things like, why do, bad things happen to good people? Because there's something that God is trying to teach them, that he knows that it's in them, and that we as humans, it's so hard for us to get out of our own mind. It's so hard for us to get out of our thought. We're so consumed with it that, unfortunately, when we have an experience that brings us to our knees, whatever it is, and whatever it is for each person, I believe that what I've experienced in my life was custom made for me to get my heart to open up bigger and bigger and bigger. And with every suffering, I've learned to be still with it and to accept it. It was not always easy. It's never easy. But it is a process. And there are two types of consciousness. There is victim consciousness, or there is victor consciousness. And simply said, it's, why is this happening to me, or why is this happening for me? And when you get proactive and you train yourself and you get into the practice, and we're so lucky to have information like this that is accessible to us, where we can copy it, we can emulate it, we could do it. And we could support each other in the process of doing it. That's what's even better. And we could really get great results, and we could really contribute and make a big difference, whether it's just in your family, in your community, and in our world, because I believe that we are all connected. And yeah.
Stephanie, did you have another question? You have your hand raised?
Well, I kind of did. I was going to, I guess, I was going to dilute this down to, you have a response ability, let's call it. It's how you respond to things in your life. So in the book, this fellow had a long, long journey to come back to his heart. But I feel that you always have a choice as to what happens to you, and you can respond to it, because I just can't let him off the hook with his immediate family. I can't believe that. I know he came from a victim childhood. We all have issues in our childhood, but I find it very difficult that he went through 2 wives. And to me, your children, look, maybe because I'm a mother, I'm in our community, I am a therapist, so I do believe that a person that has a child, their first responsibility is to that child. So yes, he got broken open, and yes, he came from a very hard place, but I can't get him off the hook for just hurting his children, hurting his wife. To me, that was his first obligation, taking care of his immediate family. And then perhaps after you make that choice, you go to the next choice and the next choice and the next choice. That's my own personal feeling. First comes your family, your children, and then yourself.
You know, it's really interesting, because I can say for myself that I've made so many mistakes in parenting, and I know that I've caused pain and suffering without realizing it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so I believe that everything is purposeful, and that there's a cause and effect to everything. And I'm not I do think that there's an integral way to live your life, but because of people's past and their pain, you know, we make choices that might not be desirable, but as long as you do the work, you can get a better
So
result.
why couldn't he? I mean, I just got so, I'm still on this. I don't understand, why couldn't he? I understand he had the ability to help so many people and to be a fantastic doctor. Why couldn't he go out his way, and what was his struggle of not wanting to get to know his children after he had such a horrible relationship with, I mean, he had such a tough growing up life. Where was his heart then? It's bothering me.
Okay, so
I agree with you, Flo. I agree with you.
Yeah, I think his point was that he lacked compassion at that time.
Is it okay if I jump in?
Sure.
I don't have my video on, guys, today.
Debbie, unmute yourself. There you go.
What I think is that parenthood, not that there's an easy answer or there's a perfect answer or there's a compact answer that will fill our question, the answer, but I think parenthood is modeled, and what was modeled for him was, unfortunately, what they say sometimes, that those cycles continue. And no, he wasn't an alcoholic, but he was in a home where he was, what's the word I'm looking for? Not abandoned, but his feelings were abandoned. And
yes, he was abandoned emotionally.
Yeah, but there's another word. Oh, my brain is
Neglected.
Sorry?
Neglected.
Yes, he was neglected, and that's what he unfortunately did with his kids. It's modeled behavior, and it's hard sometimes to break those cycles, and it's hard for us to understand. But that's what it makes sense to me.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in also. I mean, when we did Wild Game, part of that story is that the dysfunction is generational, and somebody can't give what they didn't receive. And so I put it in the chat. There's two sayings: you don't know what you don't know. And when we know better, we do better. So it's not to necessarily, I don't think it's to take away the responsibility for the hurt that he caused, but I think to understand it and to put it in a wider perspective, or that perspective, I think enables the person who was hurt to maybe move on with their lives and not take it personally. Because we value family. It's unconscionable, to, abandon children and those things. But why do people do those things? I mean, there's so many reasons. And yet the only way for us, like Tammy had said, victim, there's the victim mentality or the victor. I think to move forward is to try to, at least enlarge our perspective around it. But, we only do that when we're ready to, because our hurts are worthy too. It's not about letting people off the hook. But when we're ready to be free, I think is what I'm hearing Tammy say, is that then we start to do that work on ourselves and be able to put it in its rightful place.
Can I jump in a minute? My video's not on though.
Hi, Mish.
Hi, how are you? I'm enjoying this immensely first and foremost. I believe in the beginning of the book, he said many times a few fears that he had. His father was going to come home drunk, and he was not, the rent wasn't going to be paid, and he was always worried that he'd have to take care of it, that his mother was going to be rushed to the hospital, and she would again have go through, she went,
she suffered from depression
and she overdosed almost 3 times, and he was going to have to be in the hospital and bring her home. And then also with his brother, he was always going to be the one that was going to save him, because his brother was always being bullied. So while he himself was not child, he was also taking care of everybody else. He was taking care of his father, his mother, and his brother. And maybe when he finally became an adult, he couldn't take care of anybody anymore because he really didn't have that yet. He didn't have that ability yet because he was so deprived himself. That's how I saw it. That was just one perspective that I saw, that he was so, he was leaned on. And then he just, like, sometimes when you're taking care of other people, you just can't take care of anybody anymore. You're selfish. You become selfish.
Tammy, maybe it's an unfinished story. Maybe his story is not over.
I didn't get that. I believe that the experiences that we have in our life is to cultivate these qualities that are innate. And I can see in him that it's very easy to get caught up in our different identities. And it's not until we detach from them, whether it's through deep suffering or loss or whatever it is, that we start to do the work inside. And unfortunately, on that path, people do get hurt. We hurt people, people hurt us. And I just really believe that it's an integral part of what we need to grow. Suffering is part of growth. I'm not saying that it's right or it's wrong. It just is.
No, so my point was not that I'm saying maybe he wasn't ready. He didn't finish his journey at that time.
At that time, at that particular time. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And then when he married the second wife, she wanted to go back to California because she couldn't take the stress of the flood and etc. But he knew his heart was connecting back with people. He needed he wanted to figure out the connection between the brain and the heart. But I didn't get the feeling that they were separated with the second wife. I thought that he traveled back and forth every 6 weeks. So,
but how come they didn't talk about his private life? I wonder.
What do you mean?
About it, with his
because it's his story.
Not, with his own relationships with the women.
I think
it seemed like one-sided.
I think that the part that he discussed where he didn't have intimacy, he divorced, he disconnected from his children, and then he wasn't really connected to anybody. He just had relationships. It was he objectified.
Is it possible that he didn't know how? Because sometimes when you're brilliant, you're so brilliant, the brain is like,
he didn't tap into the empathy and the compassion. Right. That was what his search was for.
So that's what he was. That was the most important thing to raise a child, even. So
I don't think he wanted to share his personal life in part of personal life with everybody. I think he wanted to share what she taught us, what she taught him, but I don't think he wanted to get too in depth with his personal life and deep with it.
I don't think he knew how.
I think
his brain was wired different.
I agree with you, Tammy. I agree with that.
And he recognized from the beginning of the book that he made a lot of mistakes. So he had to catch up with his learning, and he had to catch up with his heart, and that's what it was about. So those connections must have been painful for him at the end.
Exactly. Opening his heart and that's what Ruth had told him. It was the most important practice, was to remember to open your heart. And it was when he lost everything and then it came back to him and he let it go, that he discovered what it was to have an open heart. And that's where all the real true magic lies. And I totally believe that.
Agreed.
I think it's the greatest gift that we can give ourselves and that we could share with others. And it's a continuum. This is not something that like you're going to learn it and then you're done. Once you learn this, then you're going to have to learn something else. And then you're going to have to apply it. We are a continuum. This is forever. But I do think that there's power in supporting each other on this kind of journey and sharing, you know, our hearts and our minds and our pain. And when we can allow ourselves to connect, it's like plugging and getting electricity. It's just so powerful in a good way.
Great.
It also takes time to do. You have to really
to process.
Realize that it takes time.
It's forever.
Yeah, it takes time, and not everybody's into that. Not everybody is so into sharing that. That's another thing. You have to make sure you have the right connection to the right people when it comes to your heart.
And don't you think that the reason why he could do it, and I think what enables us to all do it, is if we can quiet ourselves. You know, if all that sitting and meditating and quieting himself, I feel like so many people can't see what needs to change, or can't see that they're hurting others, or can't see, they can't see so much unless we're able to sit and stop a moment. And I think just getting quiet, closing his eyes, calming himself down, I think that's what we're learning today, you know, about meditation and breath work. That's what allows us to be open enough to be able to change, or to even, you know, deal with other people.
You know, it's really interesting that the book is teaching us this, but it's even more interesting that God on a whole is teaching the entire world. We are all in the magic shop. God has completely quieted everything down, put such limitations that you can't even go to your neighbor 3 weeks ago. And it's all the same. It's all the same lessons. We're living COVID. It has forced us to live through these lessons and to recalibrate ourselves and to really choose, how do we want to live our lives? What really is important to us? What are our real true intentions? What do we want to contribute? How can we give? That's a lot different than I've got to be here and I got to go there and I can't talk and quiet down, slow down, let something catch up with us. And I think it's really interesting that we did this book during this time, that it was in alignment with where our lives are. I'm sure that if we were all to be really open, that we've all gone through a lot of different emotion that we never experienced for whatever reasons that it was during these past couple of months. You felt things that you haven't felt in a long time, whether it was fear or happiness or anger or frustration or love or whatever it is. I think that this time has provided us with an opportunity to feel, to really feel.
And I think it brings in God also in its own way. I know, because
it's all God.
Jewish book club. It's the same concept. Believe that it's all going to be okay. Believe that God's with you. Believe that everything is, you know, in His hands. And I think if you let it go, I think a lot of it's letting go and let someone else take over. And I think that's a lot of the book and a lot of the feelings.
And didn't he say it in the end of the book? He said, once you really know what compassion and kindness is, then you know that you're looking into the face of God. Isn't that how the book ended? You know, isn't that what the real journey is? We put so much emphasis on things in the physical realm, but nothing feels better than when our hearts are open. Nothing. And that's my experience anyway.
Agreed.
As I feel with all of you in this Zoom meeting. So thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Anybody?
Thank you. It was a fantastic book. Thank you.
And anyone else?
Thank you, Tammy. Everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. That was amazing.
Thank you, Tammy.
What a
Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you so much. A lot.
Great.
Oh, wait, guys, before you go, we say goodbye.
Next book. Next book.
Yeah, that's what I want to talk about. Thank you, Tammy. It was amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you, Tammy.
Wait, don't get off. Don't get off. We want to tell you what's going on for the next book.
Thank you.
I put it in the
it's funny
chat,
that he never
guys.
went looking for Ruth.
I put it in the chat, but this is our next book, When Time Stopped by Ariana Newman, and Ariana Newman will be there. She's Zooming with us.
Joining
So
us.
authors event together with the SCA. We're going to do it on June 30th at 12 o'clock. She'll be there also. So read the book, have your questions ready, because it's going to be very interesting.
Wow.
Yes,
Great.
it's an event,
It's
guys.
a great book. It was a really good book. Just keep reading.
Just keep reading. What do you mean by that?
Just read it.
Take
Like,
a minute
Oh,
to get you.
takes a minute.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much, Tammy.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. It was
Tammy.
fabulous.
Stay safe.
Seeing you.
Monique, thank you.